I'm going to jump back onto Carlos because you mentioned earlier about how time commitments right now during COVID-19 has really changed in terms of the organizations and the expectations. What are the time commitments and what do you see going into the fall? What does that look like for a student starting and participating in your organization?
So, if you're gonna be a general member, you don't need to be present at every meeting. Like I said, every meeting is set up in a way that the first half is based on what we know as the resource center, and the second half is known as Screamer Círculo, which is the support system. And we talk about topics from first generation experiences to LGBTQIA. Recently, one thing that we really did mention is how in the Hispanic culture, we don't see racism, but we see colorism, which is a little bit different. And we try to basically, a lot of the times, if it's not a topic we want to talk about our personal beings or our personal stories, we often try to break down what we know as traditional curses. Traditional curses are because once they are broken, we don't have to continue talking about it because it's something that we'll teach our children further down the line that it's not something that we want to pass down. Um, Things like that. So for a general member, you don't have to be present at every meeting. But if you want to be a board member, you definitely have to be present at least at one fundraiser event. You have to be present at about, I believe last time we said 70% of all meetings, if possible. But those are board meetings, not general meetings. And then you have to be able to participate in at least one social event. Those things are what we would consider are important for you to be part of the board system.
That makes sense. Marissa, I'm curious with your group, is there a similar, it sounds like there'd be probably similar expectations for participation in the group.
Yeah, because we are a fairly new organization, we still have to work a lot with our members that we're going to end up having at the end. So what we're planning right now is to have bi-weekly meetings, and we want to have one big campus meeting where we can get guest speakers and have like workshops available to students. So we really want to get a lot of different administrators and faculties to get involved with our organization specifically. So we still are developing a lot of the concepts, but our general meetings for sure will be bi-weekly.
And Jason, you'll have to forgive me. I don't know a lot about fraternities. Are they a huge time commitment? Are you basically dedicating your life to your fraternity?
Some can say that you dedicate your life to your fraternity, but it's just like being a part of a different organization or having like a part-time job. We do have opportunities for students to come learn about what a fraternity is, because when I was first entering UNO, I didn't know what a fraternity meant exactly. And so we have opportunities for students to understand it. It usually happens the ending week of August, early week of September, where we have different activities. This semester it'll be a little different just because of all the new implementations that we're gonna have, but we're working around, you know, doing like Zoom hangouts and study groups and stuff like that on whatever platforms that we can use. But as in time commitment, so there is kind of like an intake process where we basically, it's like a 3 hour, or not a 3 hour course. I like to call it as like another class that you're taking, because we want you to learn all the information and the fundamental insight about what a fraternity means. And we just don't learn about our fraternity, we learn about other sororities and fraternities around on our campus and around on other neighboring campuses. So we do a lot of like, we learn about Sigma Lambda Gamma, which is a multicultural sorority. We also learn about Lambda Theta Nu, which is a Latina sorority as well. Then we also learn a little bit about the University of Nebraska at Lincoln. We learn about their sororities and fraternities. And so then from there, we start learning about different opportunities that you could do within the Brotherhood. So we have different executive board positions and stuff like that. And so with all that intake process and learning about all that, then the time commitment, the real work begins, as you can say, with setting up community service opportunities, you know, fundraising opportunities, intake opportunities. And so it all just depends what, you know, what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. So if you really want to be a dedicated member and help with the community in so much ways, we help with like 24th Street cleanup, the intercultural community center. And so I just like to give those as examples. But again, it just depends on the type of work and what you want to get out of it.
I think, yeah, what you said about you put into it, you get out of it what you put into it, and it applies to almost anything. And so I think that's great. What about you, Vanessa? Is it a huge amount of work? What do you envision for students joining your organization?
Yeah, so most of the summer we've been working on filling our executive board as well as our committees, our committee chair and committee member applications. So those definitely do take a lot more work. Our executive board meets bi-weekly and our committee will meet as much as the committee members, committee chairs see needed, just as they go on and plan events depending on the focus of each committee. And then we also have our general member applications, which is just a form where we ask for your name and just email address, just to have that contact information, but everyone is accepted. So just kind of that form is there for us to kind of keep track of all our members, so we can send out emails regarding events that we are having. And that one, you can come to as many or as few events as you are available for. Since events will be held virtually, we will plan to have incentives. So like say, every time you attend an event, we'll jot your name down, and then we'll have a raffle, and then you may win like some swag item, like maybe a t-shirt or something. So that's just to help get students involved, because you know that can be difficult moving forward in this new age of virtual learning and virtual engagement. But that's just there as an opportunity, because as much as we would love for everyone to be present at every meeting, especially general members, we understand that the transition through remote learning, and especially for incoming students, can be difficult, but we also want to be there as much as students wish for us to be there, seeing as some students, depending on if they're in a learning community or their own experiences through high school and college, would like more or little support depending on where they're at as first-gen students.
Perfect. Well, I mean, you hit on the most important topic to me, which was swag, because I will wear t-shirts of any organization. So I just wanted to put that out there if you guys were interested. Gustavo, is it a similar amount of time commitment for your organization?
Yeah, so for OLLAS, our requirements are going to be a little bit different just because of the pandemic. But starting in September, OLLAS will be meeting through Zoom every other Friday to discuss events that have been going on, community service opportunities, in which we're in the process of figuring out, given the situation with the COVID and adhering to social distancing, to protect our members and others. And hopefully we'll have guest speakers and to present various service opportunities to our members. So like Jason said, you'll get as much from this club as you put in. We're not going to be too hard on you or too strict on you to show up to every meeting. We just want you to make sure that you put yourself first, and that you feel motivated to be as good of a member as you can.
No, that makes sense. And you know, Anna, I'm gonna come back to you because I imagine with your STEM organization, I wanted to ask, I think students would like to know, how is it that you balance the time spent working for the organization, but also time spent covering your necessary coursework and time spent working outside of school? How do you balance all that? What tips would you have for students who would want to learn more about how to keep getting juggling all those balls at the same time?
For time commitment and for just organization, basically. So Latinos in STEM, the exec board usually meets on the first month of the semester to plan out all of the entire like semester, just so like it's not necessarily like bombarded with like giving a week in advance. Students would usually know about each meeting or about each speaker and things like that at least a month in advance. Being part of the exec board, most of that work is done in the first, like I said, in the first month of the semester. So it's a lot of planning and things like that to begin with, but once like the school year starts rolling and things like that, and we actually get into the routine, it's not really hard to balance with it. But and then you just have to work around like let your professors know and things like that if you are going to go to national conferences, just so you can get your assignments done, and just so that you can get your exams done as well before.
Perfect. Gustavo, do the students in your organization have any advice or challenges in balancing all this?
Yeah, so it's really tough to juggle so many aspects of our lives, especially with the current climate that we live in. And it's really up to us to keep ourselves in check. For me, what has worked in kind of juggling school work and the organization is keeping an agenda. Planning and writing out my week in advance has helped me keep myself accountable. What I really like to do is reward myself. So if I do this and this by Wednesday, I'll go get to play video games on Thursday or buy a burger or something like that. So kind of incentivizing things has helped me stay motivated. And it also helps to kind of deal with procrastination, which can be the single most detrimental thing a student can do to themselves. So if you are able to kind of acknowledge what is wrong with your work habits, maybe putting off things to the side for too long, if you're able to correct that, you'll be in for probably a lot smoother ride than that you would have been if you had procrastinated. So if you can create a habit of doing what you were assigned as soon as you were able to, you'll take an enormous weight off of your shoulders. And I think that's probably the best thing that we can do, given how we're supposed to kind of keep ourselves or hold ourselves accountable with just the fact that we don't get to meet in person and we don't have other people to remind us about certain assignments or certain service events that are left to do. And so, yeah, keeping an agenda and just keeping yourself in check is probably the most helpful thing that you can do.
That makes sense, and that's really good advice. Vanessa, I'm sure first generation students also would benefit from advice on how to manage time in an organization, in school, and outside of school. Any advice, any similar comments? How do you do it? How do you manage all your time?
Yeah, so similar to Gustavo, I have an hourly planner, and that kind of just helps me organize everything because I'm also involved in student government. I serve as a student body vice president, as well as working to get the ball rolling on this organization, as well as my practicum, which begins in the fall. So I've got a lot going on, but my hourly planner kind of helps me basically divide my days into, making them as long as I can, and just making sure that I want to prioritize my schoolwork and have enough time for that, and then also seeing where everything else that I want to do fits, as well as my work on the weekends. So I think hourly planners and small incentives, like Gustavo said, is nice. Just knowing like, if I finish this, I'll have at least Saturday morning off and just be able to like sleep in an hour or two, So kind of just, I think a planner is what's definitely helped me keep everything organized, knowing that I had to prioritize my classes over my student involvement, especially the first gen student. Like I know I want to do well in school, but I also want to like get full rolling on gaining more experiences, both in my involvement and on campus and in the community. So I think an hourly planner is my #1 recommendation.
Jason, I'd love to ask you, because I'm sure with your the members of the fraternity, you must be helping each other out, manage all of those demands as well.
Yeah, so like I said before, we have 4 pillars of brotherhood, scholarship, community service, and cultural awareness. So our pillar of scholarship is basically one of our brothers is in charge of that, keeping track of our grades, keeping track of we have like either, it depends on what brother chooses to have. So we can have weekly meetings, we can have monthly meetings, or we can have semester meetings. So with that, we just have like a one-on-one talking about like what are our goals for the semester, what are our grades. We also help each other out by having different like study groups. If our brothers have taken similar classes together, a lot of our brothers are in either business management or like in other same colleges together. So they like to take classes together so they can help each other out. But we also tutor each other throughout these opportunities and stuff as well. And then on top of that, just like how everyone has been saying, getting a planner. I'm a huge OCD planner, so I have a physical copy and also have a copy on my laptop. So I like to plan for the brothers as well. So I can kind of plan for their classes, or like I like to call myself amateur savvy for degree work. So I kind of like help them, like, you should take this course because it counts for, you know, your humanities and for another uh, credit level or standing. So I just help with that. And so we just hold each other accountable. We text each other and just kind of talk like, hey, instead of, you know, going out and doing something, you should be studying your books or doing like an assignment, stuff like that.
Great. Yeah. And so in addition to setting, you know, reasonable goals and rewarding yourself, planning things out and avoiding procrastination, Marissa, is there, I imagine, the challenges of negotiating work out beyond school as part of what you guys are doing. That must be an additional challenge as well.
Yeah, so ours is like an added internship or an added workshop class that you would have to take. So it's all about planning and understanding or finding meaning in the work that you're doing. So for me, I like to make sure that I have all my work schedule and all the important things laid out first, so I can make sure that these are the first things that I need to finish. And if I finish all of these things, then I can prioritize something else. So I remember my junior year, I realized that I had a lot of open space and that I could have an internship or have another job that I could possibly manage. And I worked with the person that I was getting hired by, and we planned a schedule that would relate to that schedule that I already had. So it's all about talking to the people that you work with and them understanding your schedule, as well as you giving yourself that time to rest and also working an extra job or finding that space for you to get things done on time.
Perfect. And Carlos, you and I have had a chance to chat in my statistics class about trying to navigate this all. Challenges specific to DACA students and Dreamers that UNO students wouldn't necessarily know about?
I think it's not just DACA students, but overall a lot of first generation students who have this idea of wanting to make sure that everything is perfect going on, grades, and then making sure you maintain yourself. We often forget about like that self-care. So often I always preach about self-care. I'm not the best at it, but I know that people are, and I can always get you a resource or a person who can teach you how to do it. For example, I think I've told you before, but I've always held two jobs. I've also, last semester, I was involved in, I believe, close to almost 20 organizations. And then I created something with a lot of the people in this Zoom call, something known as LSU, which is the Latinx Student Union. So it's not an organization, but overall, every, I would say, leader of every organization, either president or speaker, meets either I think we were doing bi-weekly meetings, and we talk about things that are affecting Latinx students, faculty, staff, and anyone within the UNO community. So I think often for me is making sure you put yourself first, sleeping well, eating good, but at the same time, being a DACA student or being a first generation student, you don't have to be perfect, and you have to understand that. You have to understand that your experience compared to your either white counterpart or those who have family who has been in college will not be the same, and it's okay because you are learning at a different pace, and overall you create your timeline. And I think for us, Dreamer City Colo, our support system, we talk about that a lot. How we have to be know that it is enough for what we're doing. If we put our whole effort into something, we should be content with that, because there's nothing else that we can do. There's certain things that we can't change, and we have to be okay with being okay with that, if that makes sense.
Offering is all great advice. I'll be honest, if students knew the degree to which faculty could probably listen to some of this and use a lot of this advice. I mean, for the record, I am late on everything nonstop all the time. So thank you for what you've said. We're getting close to the end of our time. I'm gonna ask you, the last question I wanted to ask you all is what do you think is the most unique aspect of your organization? What are you most proud of your organization? Marissa, I'd love to hear more from you about that.
Yeah, so something really unique about Alpha is that we have a very supporting national organization and executive board. They're also always emailing us or reaching out to us to ensure that we're all focusing on our studies before we focus on the organization itself. And they're also looking for alternative ways to get other corporations involved in networking or looking at our resumes or finding ways that they can get involved with corporations and students directly. So there's always networks around, and they're always trying to figure out ways to get students involved in a range of activities to help them professionally. So I feel like our organization has grown tremendously. We have chapters all around the United States, and we also have a national conference that we attend. And there's also other regional conferences that we attend. So we're constantly going to different areas around the state, trying to figure out solutions and trying to figure out what every organization is doing different that we can implement in our own organization. So it's all about working with different groups of people, as well as our working directly with our national board to ensure that we're all on the same task as far as working for professionals in the future.
Great, thank you. Anna, you're here representing two different organizations. What do you think is most unique about them? What would you love students to know about? What do you think is the coolest thing about your organization?
For Latinos in STEM, I think the coolest thing about our organization is that we're here to serve you. So any aspect or anything that you want to see, so any speakers that you want to see, we try our hardest to get them there, and any resources, we try our hardest to like give them to you as well. Just because like it sometimes is difficult to like, you're like, oh, I want to do this, but I don't know where to start. And we do have a lot of faculty. We do have a lot of also grad students and a lot of like people that have graduated and are in those fields come back and help us as well with that. We're also part of like SHEP and Mayas as well, which are national organizations for Latino students in STEM. So we also do have those resources with other universities. For Lambda Theta Nu Sorority Incorporated, I think the most unique aspect of it is that not only do you get that sisterly bond, and you get a place to focus on.
Okay.
Sorry.
No problem. I've got my kids at home too. It's a minor miracle that they haven't started a fight while we were on this call, so I'm thrilled. Gustavo, there are also national connections as well for your organization. Is that one of the most unique aspects that you find, or is there something else?
Yeah, so OLLAS, what's amazing about OLLAS is that we do go to national conferences. Last year we went to the United States Hispanic Leadership Institute. And something that I thought was really unique was that while we were over there, we met with another OLLAS. They shared the same name as us, and so we got to meet up and kind of hang out with them for a little bit, which is something that I find really unique about our organization. That there's going to be people with similar interests as you, even if you're like 100, 200 miles away from home. And also another thing that I think is unique about OLLAS is the sense of community among our members. You can walk up to anyone and say, hey, and they'll treat you as if you went to middle school together, they'll treat you like a family. And so it's a comforting aspect of the organization that can be hard to come by among other large groups around the city, around the university. And so you walk in and you feel like you already know everybody with how lively and eager the group is. And our motto is solo caminamos, juntos volaremos. We walk by ourselves and we fly together. So we really are more than just an organization, we're a familia.
And that's a resounding theme from what you were saying, Jason, as well, in terms of the fraternity as family. Anything else that's really unique to being a member of your organization?
Yeah, every experience, every brother has their own unique experience that they went through within their brotherhood. We sit down and talk about the stories from the first 9 men that were inducted into the fraternity in 2000. And so hearing those stories of how they fundraise, how they wanted to be advocates for the community is kind of inspiring. Because of them, I had the opportunity, to show my letters, right? We have our Sigma Lambda Beta letters and all the clothing and apparel that we have. And so putting those apparel on makes you, it gives me more confidence. It gives me like, I'm a part of something great, there are different perceptions, there's different experiences. Everyone has a sort of thought idea of what's going on with whatever organization, but how you put your attitude and your perspective into it is kind of like what I was saying, like you get what you put out, right? And so, I mean, you get, yeah, what you put out. And so putting on those letters right at the end of the day or beginning of the day and walking around campus and other Greeks are real like, oh, wow, look at your letters, that's a cool jacket. It's just a jacket, but to me, it's the letters that my 9 founders had that they worked so really hard for. And so because of them, I have this experience. And because of them, I have these letters. And so that's just kind of a unique experience for me.
Thank you. Vanessa, I can't imagine there's any way to describe the members of your organization other than unique. They're first generation students. This is all new to them. What do you want students to know? What do you think is the most interesting aspect of that?
Yeah, so I believe we are the first registered first generation college student organization, which is really exciting because of the fact that about 40% of UNO students are first gen. And this is finally an organization that is here to support students. And we're lucky enough that we got funding, we got a budget out of the First Gen Guild. So that just shows that all these faculty, staff, and members of administration are intentional in wanting to support students. And now that students are able to have that direct line of communication with them and also have a budget for our swag, for our events, for anything that can help support first gen students is incredibly awesome. And knowing that our executive board and those involved in our organization are intentional in what we are planning. We are here, to think this all started from a final project for our class. And now we're here as a student organization that has a budget thanks to the efforts of members of administration, faculty, and staff. It's all just amazing, just thinking back to how this all started from just an idea that my classmate and I had. And her name is Paula Hernandez, and I'm really lucky to be working alongside her just because all of summer we've been spent working with our advisors to help organize these events, help kind of get all our ideas out there and organize them within committees and just our plans moving forward. We're really excited and we're here intentionally. We want to be as helpful to first generation students, being first gen students ourselves. So it's all just a lot of exciting news.
That's great. Now we're almost out of time, but the last question I have to ask you all is essentially, how can students learn more about your organization? What would you want them to do to find out more and to get involved? And Carlos, I'd love to hear from you if you don't mind.
Okay, so we actually have a Facebook page and we have a Facebook group. And often we share other groups depending if you want to learn more about advanced parole, if you want to learn about like people who live, who are dreamers and live in other parts of the United States, if you ever wanted to interact with them. We often share information about the immigration system, but often we try to like send out notifications if anyone wants to reach out, they are welcome to. But on how they can reach us, they can always email us. They can find us on Facebook. They can find us on Instagram if that's what you like to do. But on the other hand, for the Latinx Student Union, you can actually find more information about every single organization that has been present today. So if you ever wanted to reach out, you can always email us there too.
I imagine that's the case with a lot of you. Anything missed? Instagram, Twitter, I think you mentioned as well. There's Facebook. Anyone want to jump in?
Engage would be a good one. I guess that's at UNO. I don't know if a lot of people use it, but it's there.
Yeah, we also have a Greek life page on the UNO website. And then the UNO betas have their own website as well. It's on WIC.
Anna, Gustavo, and Vanessa, anything else in terms of where students should get more information?
Yeah, so to promote our organization, we've been reaching out to different learning communities and departments within UNO, and we're working on social media, but you can also reach us through email at firstforwarduno@gmail.com. But we are working on social media, so it's all progress from here. But yeah, and just if you're in a learning community, just checking your email. I know it's summer, so some of us may be, hard to reach through email, but that's the best we've been doing, especially since we haven't been on campus since we started planning this organization. But look out on social media for us.
And for OLLAS, our contact information can be found through Engage, as we've already said. We also have a Facebook group or a Facebook page that you can join. Our name is Association of Latino American Students. And we also have a Twitter and an Instagram page. If you would like to follow us at OLLAS@UNO, that's our handle. And yeah, those are the main ways that you can get connected with us.
For Latinos in STEM, we also have like Engage with all of our contact information, but we also do have an email, which is latinosinstem@unomaha.edu. So if you do have any direct question, it is being monitored like every day. So it's the fastest way to get a reply as well.
Right. Well, I mean, we're pretty much out of time. I'm going to ask you all if there's any final thoughts, messages you'd like to say to prospective students as we sign off. Marissa, any final words that you wanted to add?
I would just say to get involved and try to know what kind of community you want to get involved with, because I feel like you get a lot and you gain a lot of professional skills, you get a lot of friends out of it too. I know a lot of people, especially I know the majority of you guys in this chat alone. So it's fun having a community and knowing that there's people there for you in your college experience, because it can be stressful. So I would just say to get involved and learn about different organizations on campus.
Jason, do you have any final thoughts?
Always ask questions. No question is too dumb. No question. Everyone has a question, and it's better to be answered on the floor than to be leaving, going to your car and being like, oh, I should have asked one more question. So definitely ask more questions.
What about you, Anna? Any final comments?
I'd say to have fun. Like this is a completely different experience from what high school was and things like that. So, and you're gonna meet people here that are one day gonna be maybe in your wedding or maybe anywhere else. So just like have fun, make those connections and things like that. And then yeah.
Perfect, thank you. And what about you, Vanessa? Any messages to students coming at UNO first gen, and final thoughts?
Yeah, I would say just take advantage of all these great opportunities. I mean, we may be here representing different organizations, different purposes, but I think something that we all have in common is just being intentional in how we reach out to students and wanting to be there for any support that they may need, whether it be related to DACA students, first gen, or something related to their major. I just, there's so many things to do, and I hope students don't get overwhelmed. But, just going on Engage and like searching a keyword for like something you want to get involved with, and you can find it on there. So don't be afraid to just try different things. I know when I first came to college, I was involved in a few different organizations, and eventually I found the two that I wanted to spend my most time in. So it's all about seeing what fits you.
Perfect, thank you. Carlos, what about you?
Yeah, so definitely vote for the voiceless. Your vote really does count, and if you can, you should. Another thing, if you want to get empowered, if you want to learn how to tell your own story and what that means, please come to us. We can always help you through that. And if you just need someone to hear you out, you don't need to be DACA or a dreamer in order for you to be part of our organization. It's just a support system. And then just make sure that even if your voice cracks, speak against any injustices, speak your mind. Just like Jason said, it's really important for you to ask questions if you want to learn. It's really important for you to speak out if you see something that's not right. And honestly, you have more power than you think you do. So please make sure you do that.
Thank you, Carlos. And Gustavo, any final thoughts?
Yeah. I think my final thought is a piece of advice that I have for every student, and that is to don't be afraid to take a risk. Don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone. Don't be afraid to take initiative and be a leader. You know, um, you got to let your voice be heard, and joining an organization will allow someone to find opportunities that you would have never found if you had just been a normal student. Um, you know, and when you join an organization, you become a part of something and you become integrated into the community at UNO. And so, you know, you don't want to live to have regrets. You just want to look back and say, you know, dang, I really did that, you know? So I think that's probably the biggest piece of advice that I can give to anyone is to not be afraid to take a risk, you know, just do it, you know. You only live once, as the great philosopher Drake said. Just get out there and be the best person that you can be.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And yeah, I think that really would resonate with a lot of students. I mean, to sort of sum up, I think the next year is going to be a challenge to a lot of people, and we need community more so now than ever. And I think what you're doing as part of your organizations, bringing students together and offering opportunities for them for the long term is exactly what we need to be doing as a group for Omaha, for UNO, and really for all the other students who are going to be joining us. And so I thank you for your time. I thank you for your great answers and what you're doing for our fellow students. And yeah, I really appreciate you being available to talk to us today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You.
Thank you.
Awesome. And yeah, thanks again for being part of Quarantining with OLLAS.